When you think of orcs, I wonder if you, like I do, think of this. These are 1970s miniature figurines, Urukai, and these are an assemblance of large goblins, which I came to call orcs. These creatures are mentioned in Latin Christianity, Orcneas, Orcus, and they sort of translate orc as it's like demon, neas, underground. They're an unspoken monster. They're part of the children of Cain, the evil. So that's where they come in the religious spectrum. They're mentioned in Beowulf. That's a good Anglo-Saxon quote, and a place where you can say, aha, that's an orc. It's not quite an orc, but he says orc, yes. If you're interested, the specific line in Beowulf is a description of evil monsters, Orcneas und Ilfe und Orcneas. There were giants, there were elves, there were orcs, demons. Now, of course, Tolkien, being a student of Anglo-Saxon and a professor of Anglo-Saxon, knew that Beowulf quite well, and the idea of orcs. Now, they didn't appear in fantasy literature anywhere else. They sort of, Tolkien went, oh, I like that, and he nicked it. He borrowed them, like he did elves, but he made elves into something else completely to what they were in Anglo-Saxon mythology. They weren't children of Cain, for example. So orcs are created by Tolkien for fantasy. That's where they pop up, and we know how they pop up because we've seen the film, we've read the book, and that says. So then we go, aha, right, I know what an orc is, I know what a man orc is, got it. But there's more to them than that. How do they appear on the table, and how do they get to where they're meant to be? So Tolkien comes up with the idea. Gary Gygax liked orcs right from they were in Dungeons and Dragons right from the start. They were in chainmail. They were in the early bestiaries. They were in the monster books. They were in the game. They weren't necessarily had modules built around them, but they were there to be brought in as NPCs. They were sort of NPC fodder, really, things to beat up. Bigger goblins, more dangerous goblins, I would say. Through D&D, they slowly changed to become more green-skinned, beastie type big lads. And by the time you get to Games Workshop, they're orcs who eventually become orcs with a K for a number of reasons, partly because they think it sounds more aggressive, partly it's easier to distinguish them from Tolkien type orcs. The figures are becoming more characterful, maybe. They've got more expression, they've got more of a life, and then when they take them into space, it makes sense. The space orcs makes more sense. They're then no longer the Tolkien orcs. They've gone on that journey, haven't they? So from Beowulf and the Latin of some sort of demon-y creature, we've gone through Tolkien. We know what they're like. Look at the film, read the book. Games Workshop, we know what they're like. Read the codexes, into space, 40k, and so on. That's quite a long journey for them, isn't it, lads? But I was thinking about orcs in a slightly different way. As I do. I don't have orcs in my world. I have lots and lots of types of goblins. So I have figures that you might have been manufactured as orcs. It's not what I call them. I use them as types of goblin. So I don't have orcs in my world. My world is more medieval, and orcs are not medieval. If they exist at all in my world, they would be as a half-spoken, quiet, don't mention the Beowulf type orc, the demon underground, the monster, the hell that's never spoken of. Now, I do think that we could look quite well into the socialization, the tribal lifestyles of orcs, and I'm come up with some really nice bits and bobs, and I'm speaking from a position of ignorance because I've already told you I don't have any. But having said that, I've had them in the past. I understand the principle. I've not been to Australia, but I know it's there. Now, I think if we considered, let's start at the beginning with tribal organisation. How do they live? There is some, like the Uruk-hai in Lord of the Rings, they're manufactured, aren't they? Saruman makes them. Do you want that? Do you want in your world a manufactured orc? There's no reason why you shouldn't. Or is your orc more generic? Or have you got both? Have you got generic wild orcs that have then been harnessed to this evil, which is what Tolkien seems to do? How do the tribes exist? Do they have a leader? The Uruk-hai in Lord of the Rings have a wizard as a leader. He is not a big Uruk-hai. I would argue that the big Uruk-hai in Lord of the Rings are heroic, anti-heroic, whichever. Rather, they're not lords. They're not making command decisions about policy. They're not feeding the people. Are they hunter-gatherers? Are they cave dwellers? They don't look like the sort of chaps who would build. So in my head, I'm beginning to think they would take over other things. They might be in a falling down old castle. They might have taken over an ancient dwarven deserted mine. But I can't imagine they build it themselves. And looking at the way they're equipped, mine are fairly crude. They've got almost like stone axes tied onto big logs of wood. The shields look very much like sort of Zulu shields. They do have some metal workings, but it almost looks like farm machinery that they've tied onto a bit of a log. They're not as organised as the man-orcs would be, who've got matching armour, matching shields, matching banners. And these lads, look, that's their standard bearer. He doesn't have a banner. He just has somebody's head tied to his stick. So he ain't even got a flag. So, I don't know, the clothes are all skins. So looking at my figures, the ones that do wear mail, I've got one there wearing a helmet and mail. He looks more like he's pinched it. And his flag looks like something he's just wiped his nose on. So he's a bit crude and odd. So personally, I'm beginning to think that orcs are tribal, that they are primitive, but within that there are perhaps engineered orc who are then clad by the person that has claimed them. Like Lord of the Rings, Saruman, powerful wizard, takes over the orcs, provides them with swords and shields, provides them with a sigil, provides them with armour that matches, because he likes it. But you might not have that in your world. It might be far more tribal, it might be far more primitive. The orc could be, as they were in my world for a long time, just really big, nasty goblins. I'm thinking the question is not what is an orc. The question is, what have we made orcs become? Because they are no longer the dark force of Anglo-Saxon mythology. They deserve to be more than that. We've sanitised them. And I think it's time to unsanitize them. Yeah, watch this space. Ta-ra, Joker.